Welcome back to another episode of the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and today we have a very interesting and important topic for all English learners out there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia. And yes, Jason, today's topic is something that many learners struggle with translating in their heads while speaking English.
Exactly. If you're someone who always thinks in your native language first, and then tries to translate every word into English before speaking, this episode is for you.
Because that habit translating word by word is one of the biggest reasons why many learners can't speak fluently or confidently, even if they know a lot of vocabulary and grammar.
That's so true, Julia. I've met many students who say, I understand English, but when I try to speak, my mind just freezes. And that's usually because their brain is busy translating instead of thinking in English.
Right. So today, we're going to help you understand why translating slows you down, and more importantly, how you can stop translating and start speaking English naturally.
We'll also share some practical steps, simple exercises, and a real-life story that will motivate you to start thinking directly in English, no more translation.
So, if you're ready to finally speak English faster, easier, and more naturally, stay with us till the end of this episode. You're going to learn a lot today.
Let's get started with our first part, why translating is actually a big problem for English learners. All right, so let's start with this question. Why is translating such a big problem when learning English? I mean, most learners think translation helps them understand better, right?
Yes, Jason, that's very common. Many learners believe that translating every word from their native language to English is helpful, but in reality, it actually slows down their speaking and thinking process.
Exactly. Imagine you want to say something simple like, I'm hungry. But instead of saying it directly, your brain first thinks in your native language, then searches for the English words, and finally puts them together. That takes time.
Yes, and during that time, you start feeling nervous or shy because you can't find the right words fast enough. That's why many learners pause a lot or say, while speaking.
Right, Julia. And the funny thing is, native speakers don't do that. They don't translate every sentence. They think in English. That's what makes their speech natural and fluent.
Exactly. Translation also causes mistakes because every language has its own grammar, word order, and expressions. For example, if you translate an idiom word by word, it can sound completely strange in English.
That's so true. Like, if you translate, it's raining cats and dogs into another language literally, it wouldn't make sense at all.
Yes, it would sound crazy. So the main problem is that translation creates a barrier between your thoughts and your speech. To become fluent, you need to remove that barrier.
Well said, Julia. So now that we understand why translating is a problem, let's move on to the next part, how the brain actually learns a language and why thinking in English works much better.
So, Jason, now that we know translating slows us down, let's talk about how the brain actually learns a language. Why does thinking directly in English work better?
That's a great question, Julia. You see, our brain learns languages through connection, not translation. When you were a child, you didn't translate your first language. You heard words again and again in real situations, and your brain naturally connected the sound with the meaning.
Exactly. For example, when a baby hears the word apple while seeing an apple, the brain links the word to the object. There's no translation, just understanding through experience.
Yes, but when adults learn English, they often try to connect English words to their native language words instead of connecting them to real ideas. That's what creates the translation habit.
Right. The key is to train your brain to connect English words directly with meaning, with images, feelings, and experiences, not with your native language.
For example, when you hear coffee, don't think of the word in your native language. Just imagine the smell, the taste, the cup, feel it in English.
That's such a powerful way to learn. The more your brain connects English with real-life situations, the faster you'll understand and speak without translating.
Exactly. It's all about creating a direct English path in your brain. Once that connection is strong, speaking becomes automatic and natural.
Beautifully said, Jason. And in our next part, we'll help you find out if you're still translating and how to recognize the signs.
All right. So now that we know how the brain learns language, let's talk about something important. How do you know if you're still translating while speaking English?
Yes, many learners don't even realize they're doing it, but there are some clear signs that show you're still translating in your head. Let's go through a few.
Number one, you pause a lot when speaking. You know what you want to say, but you stop to think, wait, how do I say that in English? That's a big sign you're translating word by word.
Exactly. Number two, you understand English when reading or listening, but when it's time to speak, your mind feels blank. That happens because your brain is busy switching between two languages.
Yes. And number three, you often make strange or unnatural sentences. That's because your sentence structure is still based on your native language.
Right. For example, a learner might say, I very like this food, because that's how it sounds in their language. But in English we say, I really like this food.
Good example, Julia. And here's another sign you need to mentally translate before answering simple questions. Like when someone asks, "How are you?" and you first think of the answer in your native language, then turn it into English.
Yes, that's a classic one. But don't worry if you notice these signs. It doesn't mean you're bad at English. It just means your brain is still using the old method.
Exactly. The good news is you can train your brain to think directly in English. And that's what we'll start doing in our next part, learning how to think in English with simple words.
So, Jason, let's begin with the first practical step. Start thinking in English with simple words.
Yes, and this step is super important. Many learners think they must use big, difficult words to sound fluent. But actually, fluency starts with simple and clear English.
Exactly. You can begin with everyday things around you. For example, when you wake up, look around and name things in English: bed, pillow, window, light, toothbrush.
Right. And you can also think about simple actions. For example, I'm brushing my teeth. I'm drinking water. I'm putting on my shoes. These small sentences train your brain to use English naturally.
Yes, and the best part? You don't need anyone to practice with. You can do this quietly in your mind any time while walking, cleaning, or traveling.
Exactly. The goal is to make English part of your daily thinking routine. Even if it's just 1 minute a day, it slowly builds your English thinking habit.
That's right. Start small and be consistent. Over time, your brain will stop translating because it's getting used to thinking directly in English.
Perfect advice, Julia. And next, we'll go one step further. We'll talk about how to connect words together instead of translating them one by one. Now that you've started thinking in simple English words, the next step is to connect those words together, not translate them one by one.
Exactly, Jason. When learners translate word by word, the sentences often sound unnatural. English has its own flow and rhythm, so you need to learn how words connect naturally.
Yes. For example, in English we say, take a shower, not do a shower, or make a mistake, not do a mistake. These are word combinations or collocations that you need to remember together as one idea.
Right. When you think in English, focus on the meaning of the whole phrase, not the individual words. For example, the phrase, "What's up?" means, "How are you?" not something about direction or location.
That's a great example. So instead of memorizing word by word, learn short chunks like, how's it going? I'm on my way, or I don't feel well. These are how native speakers really talk.
Exactly. And once you start using these word connections in daily thoughts or conversations, your English will sound smoother and more natural without any translation.
Perfect, Julia. Up next, we'll talk about how to bring English into your daily life situations so that thinking in English becomes automatic.
All right, Jason, now let's move to step 3, use English for daily life situations. This is where real progress begins.
Exactly. You don't have to wait for a classroom or a speaking partner. You can use English every day while doing normal things. For example, when you're cooking, you can say, I'm cutting the vegetables, or the water is boiling.
Yes, and when you're walking outside, think in English, "The weather is nice today," or "I see a red car." These small thoughts help your brain get used to English naturally.
That's the secret. Make English part of your real life. The more you connect it to what you see and do, the less you'll need to translate.
Exactly. And soon you'll notice that English becomes your second nature, something you use automatically without even thinking about it.
Beautifully said, Julia. Now, let's go to the next step, how listening and shadowing can help you think faster in English. Now, let's move to step 4, practice listening and shadowing. This step is one of the best ways to train your brain to think in English.
That's right, Jason. When you listen to English podcasts, movies, or conversations, your brain starts to recognize patterns, sounds, and rhythm, and shadowing helps you copy that naturally.
Exactly! Shadowing means listening to a short sentence and repeating it immediately, just like an echo. It helps your mouth and brain work together in English without time for translation.
Yes, and it also improves pronunciation, tone, and confidence. You start speaking English the same way you hear it: fast, natural, and automatic.
That's the key. Don't just listen, shadow it. Make your brain and tongue move together. Soon, you'll notice you're speaking without translating at all.
Perfect. And next, we'll talk about something very important: how to stop fearing mistakes and speak more naturally. Okay, Jason, now let's talk about step 5. Stop fearing mistakes and speak naturally. This one is so important because fear is what keeps many learners stuck.
You're absolutely right, Julia. Many people hesitate to speak because they worry about grammar, pronunciation, or what others might think. But here's the truth. Even native speakers make mistakes.
Exactly. The goal isn't to speak perfectly, it's to communicate clearly. When you focus too much on being perfect, your brain slows down, and that's when you start translating again.
That's a great point. Fluency doesn't mean no mistakes. It means you can express yourself naturally and keep the conversation going. The more you speak, the faster your brain learns.
Right. So, don't be afraid to make small errors. Just keep speaking. Every time you speak in English, you're training your brain to think faster and more naturally.
Exactly. Confidence comes from practice, not from perfection. So, start speaking, enjoy the process, and let your mistakes become your best teacher.
Beautifully said, Jason. And now, let's make this idea more real. We'll share a real-life story about someone who stopped translating and became fluent.
Now, Julia, let's share a real-life example to inspire our listeners. I know a student, Sarah, who struggled with speaking English for years.
Oh, yes, Jason. Sarah always translated in her head. She knew a lot of words, but when it came to speaking, she would pause, hesitate, and sometimes give up mid-sentence.
Exactly. But one day, she decided to change her approach. Instead of translating, she started thinking in English first with simple words, then with short sentences, and she practiced daily in her real-life situations.
She also used listening and shadowing exercises and stopped worrying about mistakes. At first it was hard, but she kept going. Slowly, her speech became smoother, faster, and more natural.
Within a few months, Sarah noticed she could speak without translating at all. Conversations felt effortless, and her confidence skyrocketed.
The key lesson here is simple: stop translating, start thinking in English, and practice consistently. Anyone can do it just like Sarah did.
Absolutely. And now, to make this actionable for our listeners, we'll give a quick practice activity that you can start today. All right, Julia. Now it's time for a quick practice activity that our listeners can do right now to stop translating and start speaking English naturally.
Yes, here's a simple one. Pick a small object around you, maybe your phone, a cup, or a book. Now, try to describe it in English using simple sentences. For example, this is my phone. It's black. I use it to call my friends.
Exactly. And the key is, don't think in your native language. Just describe it directly in English, even if the sentences are simple.
You can also try this with your daily actions. For example, when you're drinking water, say to yourself, I'm drinking water. It's cold and fresh. This helps your brain make direct English connections.
And here's a tip: do this for 1 to 2 minutes every day. Over time, your brain will automatically start thinking in English, and speaking without translating will become much easier.
Exactly. Remember, consistency is more important than perfection. Small daily practice makes a huge difference in your fluency.
Perfect. And now, let's quickly recap everything we've learned today and give our final motivation to keep practicing. All right, Julia, before we close, let's quickly recap everything we covered today.
Sure, Jason. First, we learned why translating slows you down and why thinking directly in English is so much faster and natural.
Then we talked about how the brain learns a language by connecting ideas and experiences, not by translating word by word.
We also covered the common signs that show you're still translating, like pausing too long or forming unnatural sentences.
And the 5 practical steps: starting to think in simple words, connecting words naturally, using English in daily life, practicing listening and shadowing, and finally, stopping the fear of mistakes.
Exactly. Plus, we shared a real-life story and a quick practice activity to help you start speaking without translating.
So, the main message is clear stop translating, start thinking in English, and practice consistently. Every small step counts toward becoming fluent.
Yes, remember, it won't happen overnight, but if you keep applying these steps every day, speaking English will become natural and fun.
That's right. Stay consistent, trust the process, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Your brain will adjust, and your fluency will improve faster than you think.
Absolutely. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and enjoy the journey of speaking English confidently and naturally.
All right, everyone. That's a wrap for today's episode on Stop Translating and Start Speaking English.
We hope you found these tips helpful and that you'll start applying them in your daily life. Remember, think in English, connect words naturally, and practice every day.
Yes, and don't forget, consistency is the key. The more you practice, the faster you'll speak English fluently without translating.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends who are learning English.
And comment below, tell us what simple activity you'll start today to stop translating and speak more naturally. We'd love to hear your progress.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the English Learning Podcast.